Today I'm going to be reviewing The Wolf by Carew. I'm going to start just by laying out some of the facts about this book. It has 450 pages. It is produced by Orbit Publishing Company, and it can easily be found at Barnes & Noble. That's where I picked mine up. Okay, so The Wolf is book one of Under the Northern Sky series. Right now there's only two books. The second book is The Spider, that is now out. And this series just started. This is a very new series by a new author, Carew. So, my thoughts on this book. This is a fantasy type story, but not too strong because it doesn't have some of the classic fantasy elements. The big one is there's no magic system. Magic is not at all placed in this book. It's really a knight's tale, like a medieval times. It's all sword fights and armor, a lot of armor descriptions, how it's used, different swords and weapons and how they're used in battle. And there's a couple big battle scenes which are very, I don't want to say historically accurate, but there's definitely our real world aspects in how the battle goes down. Moving on to some of the plot points of the story, I'm not going to have any big spoilers or ruin the plot, but there will be some a little added in here. The big thing to understand is there's two human-like societies. The Southerners, which are more like us, like our modern-day humans, are considered smaller and weaker, but they repopulate very quick, and the key fact is they are very greedy for gold. And then in the north you have the Anakim, which are still humanoid. They still look and have the same sort of acting characteristics, but the big differences are they're much taller and they live twice to three times as long. In the book it describes their lives as being 200 years is the average. And physically they have extra bones in their chest and body, and it is like a bone armor that they use. And with this, both how they're bigger and the bone armor, they're a very warrior-like culture. And their culture is different because of how long they live, but it definitely centers around the men being warriors. And there's some almost Spartan-like aspects to it, with the young boys being sent to an academy in the north. And it's not really explained too much, but they do go up there to train and then come back and are enlisted in the military for a certain number. It's not too defined, but you do military service before you would enter and pick up other usable skills. They are big into metalworking too. If you're not a soldier, metalworking is very big, because that's where the key contrast comes in. Is the Anakim are really about steel and iron and usable metals for armor and swords. That's why they don't care for gold, and that's focused on as a big point with the Southerners' greed and gold, and the Northern not greed for gold and use of metal in a very different perspective. Now, to loosely touch on the plot, I'm not going to do any big reveals. I just want to say what there is. There is an invasion, and there's a couple big character deaths, so you might think this person's really important and they're going to be the protagonist, and then it switches. And you're like, whoa, wasn't expecting that. So, that's a good part. I think that's a good part of the book. But because of this invasion, that's what really drives the fighting scenes. And there are a couple big battles which are well described out too. They don't just say they marched into battle and then tell you what the result was. They go into good depth with the fighting and how it progressed, which I like. I'm not a big fan of the books that just give you the before and after, but kind of leave out. So Carew knew how to write battles, so that was good. And my apology to him if I am pronouncing that name wrong. The piece that made this book stand out the most to me from other books I've read is there's not as defined a protagonist and an antagonist as is traditionally written in our books nowadays. Because the two main characters, there are definitely two main characters, both have protagonist and antagonist characteristics to me. And the way he plays the book and writes it, you follow both sides. So you don't really know which one you want to win almost all the way through. And both have their own reasons, and both are, some are good and some are bad, and it rotates around them. So you're really not sure who is the right side of the sword. There's no clear picture painted that. And since these are both humanoid creatures to a very clear extent, there's not the classic, oh, I'm supporting this because they're the humans against the monsters. That's not created. So it keeps you in a real middle place for most of the book, continuously flipping. And I don't mind that. I understand some people might not want that. They want the clear defined, this is the good guy, this is the bad guy. But if you want to see what a good written in the middle is, and you're following both sides, and you're like, dang, how's this going to turn out? This was written very well for that purpose. And on that note, I don't want to ruin anything else, and I'm not going to go further into plot. I'm going to leave on this is the first book of this new series, Under the Northern Sky. I have the second one, I picked it up. I'm working my way to it. But I'm excited to see where this goes after this first one, because obviously it's a clear continuation to the story. And I'm hoping it's more than a two story. I've been looking around and I haven't seen anything about a third book or if there's a definite part to the series. But with the way this one I've seen selling and I've seen other reports on, I've had recommendations about. So I'm really hoping it picks up some steam and makes a couple more. Those are my final thoughts. And to finish this off, I'm going to give it a rating. And I'm really leaning towards this book earned an 8 from me with the plot, how it was written different, good characters, good battle scenes, and honestly, I like the physical feel and read of the book. And that actually is just as important as all the other stuff. Because if it's not enjoyable to physically hold the book and read it, then why would you do it?